New year for some rookie receivers, guys making impacts right away. Let's start with Garrett Wilson, the Jets receiver who had 2 touchdowns, 102 receiving yards in his home state of Ohio. He gave an OH shout to some of the Browns fans in attendance after his first score. They love this kid. They think he's going to be a star. What have you seen from him so far that you like, Matthew?
Well, a star in the NFL and a star in fantasy. Usually, rookie wide receivers that are drafted that high, usually there's a reason for it. He's really talented. And what's exciting is they've figured out ways to get him the ball. A 22% target share for Garrett Wilson through the first 2 games of the season. They're targeting it early and often. He has a higher target share than Elijah Moore. He has a target tire share than the highly paid Corey Davis. So Garrett Wilson through the first 2 games, at least with Joe Flacco under center, has been the focal point of a Jets passing offense that has been, well, functional. And that's what we care about in fantasy. Obviously, a monster game here as the Jets come back and win 8 for 102 and 2 touchdowns that you mentioned, Mike. I think it's interesting. Garrett Wilson's still out there in some leagues, so is he a viable fantasy player going forward? Yes. Do I expect 100 yards and 2 touchdowns every week? I don't. But do I think he continues to lead the Jets in targets? Certainly, as long as Joe Flacco's under center. We'll see what happens when Zach Wilson comes in. But certainly it seems like the play callers are designing plays for Garrett Wilson, and he's making them.
And mature beyond his years. On the game-winning touchdown catch, he told me he spotted a coverage that the Browns had used earlier in the game. The play that they called fit with the coverage well. He knew all he had to do was speed up his route, and he'd be open in the middle of the field. He did it. Joe Flacco found him. That was it. Game over. And the Jets win, and Wilson has a huge performance. Drake London for the Falcons. Yeah, they're 0-2, but London had a pretty big day. And as you said, guys get drafted high for a reason. They're expected to come in and perform, and London's finally doing it.
Yeah, that's been what's nice is that, with fantasy, with rookie wide receivers, sometimes it's a mixed bag. Every once in a while you get a Justin Jefferson, right, or a Jamar Chase. A lot of times you get guys that maybe don't live up to expectations. But we've seen so far in the first 2 weeks a really nice rookie class. We already talked about Garrett Wilson. You mentioned Drake London, who goes 8 for 86 and a touchdown on 12 targets for the Falcons. Look, the Falcons are going to be behind in a lot of games and throwing, and it's clear that Drake London is clearly a target for Marcus Mariota, a team-high 33% target share through the first 2 weeks. And how about Chris Olave in New Orleans, right? 5 for 80, but here's what's important. 13 targets, over 300 air yards. Jameis Winston talking after the game about the fact that, hey, a lot of those passes that didn't land, that's on me. Olave was getting separation. We're going to hit those later in the season. I just wasn't able to connect there. Winston, I think, playing a little bit banged up as well. But the fact is that Chris Olave, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, some rookie wide receivers making noise not only in the NFL, but in fantasy as well.
And they're just getting started, just as we're getting finished. We'll see you next time.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.